everyone, I'm Rebecca with Holly Rustic, and I'm here today to do our tutorial for the round vine door hanger. It has the vine and the letter. I have already done some of it in advance because with this particular craft, there's not a lot for me to tell you as far as painting your round and painting your letter. It's just simple paint. So with your round, you can go ahead and paint it your background color. Your kit has white, so if you want to paint it white, go ahead and do that. You don't have to paint the edges unless you want to. They are laser burned, so that's completely up to you. Some people just like the laser look on the edge. For your letter, same thing, just solid color. Paint it whatever color you ordered with your kit, and you can do the edges or you can leave them black, that laser look. So the only thing I really need to teach you today is how to do the vines, and you could just paint them a solid color if you want. I like to put a little bit of contrast on the leaves, so I'm just going to show you how to do that. And I'm going to use this one and just flip it over. So in your kit you have green, you should have white, and then whatever color you used for your you asked for your letter. Now for this vine, I'm going to use a flat brush, and basically you're going to do 2 coats of paint. So I've got this green, and I'm going to go around the whole thing. And I'm just gonna put a coat of paint on. Now usually on the first round, you can still see the wood after it dries, which is why I say you probably want to do 2 coats, but you definitely don't have to. It's up to you. Painting in between all these leaves can be a pain, so again, you can paint them or you can leave them with that burned edge. It doesn't really matter what brush you use for this part. It's mostly once we do some of the shading or the contrast. It's been a little while since I've done a video. I am considered an essential employee, I guess, since I deliver mail, so I've been busy with that. This is one of those crafts that's just super simple, but it's so pretty. I just love the finished look of the 3D or the laser, you know, the raised vines and letter. If you're not going to paint these black edges, you probably want to be a little more careful than I am. I'm just kind of slinging paint all over it, but it will drip over the sides if you do it quickly like I'm doing, which doesn't bother some people, but it's a personal preference, up to you. Hopefully we're getting back to our normal schedule here soon. Fingers crossed. It's kind of crazy how things have been, the quarantine and all that. Alright, so as that starts to dry, I'll be able to see some wood spots probably. Sometime, yeah. So as we do our second coat, we're gonna do some shading while it's still wet. So I'm gonna keep some of my original green color, but I'm also gonna mix up a color that's a little bit lighter, and I don't need a whole lot of paint, but I should really probably have an apron on because I am a mess. Well, that was way too much. That's gonna be a little lighter than I wanted it to be, or a whole lot lighter than I wanted it to be. So I'm gonna scoot some of that white over and kind of mix this right here. So here's my two colors. I just want it to be a couple shades lighter than my original, so that there is some contrast. All right, that one's good. So as this has dried, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start wherever I started earlier. I'm gonna use the same brush and just dip in my original color, and I'm gonna do a second coat real quick, and I'm gonna do about two to three leaves at a time so that I can shade them before they get, sorry, I didn't know you couldn't see here. Let me scoot this over. About 2 or 3 leaves at a time here so that I can get to them before they dry, because it dries pretty fast. So I've shaded these 3, or I'm sorry, I've put a second coat on these 3 right here. So now I'm gonna dip in my lighter color, and I'm gonna turn my brush sideways so that I have that flat edge, and then right up the middle, I'm just gonna do some quick brush strokes with my sideways flat brush. Now you can leave them like that if you want. What I like to do is just go back over with my sideways brush and kind of blend them into that darker green. So just kind of lightly, don't push it down into that paint, but you just want to kind of lightly stroke your paint there. Actually, I'm not sure that's light enough. I'm going to put a little more white and mix this. It's not contrasting enough. If you get it too light, you can always go back over it with the darker color again. So I'm just gonna kind of dip in my darker color and go over it just like that. I mean, you can play with it and go back and forth between your dark and your light until you get it the way you like it. And I'm not painting the stems between the leaves, I'm just leaving them dark. So I'm gonna go back here and do the next 3. Just kind of do a second coat, and you'll get some of that blending since since you're using the same brush. And then dip in my lighter. Put a little bit of white in there. I might actually get a different brush. I'm gonna get a smaller flat brush for my lighter color. Just not mix up another batch here. It's not getting the color I want. I like doing this when the paint's wet because it just blends better. And now I'm just switching back and forth between my brushes. Doing the second coat in the original color and then using the smaller flat brush to go back and do some blending. I just think this looks better than just a solid color. a little bit of time, but and a lot of green paint. Remember not to push down too hard with your brush, because it just, you won't get that same effect. It'll just all be light green. So just lightly brush that lighter color on. You don't even want to cover the whole leaf. So the goal is not to change the color, it's to see both of them. If you do get it all light green, again, just take a little bit of your dark color again and put a little bit back in it. I think that's my last one. Alright, and you can go back and touch up any spots. You got that. Is that the original color in between the leaves? Alright, and we're done. Alright, so once that dries, we're just going to put everything together. Now, you have some of the E6000 craft glue. Now, when you use the craft glue, a little goes a long way. So you're not going to put big globs of that glue on your vines, because when you push it down, all the glue is going to spill out from the sides, and it's going to it's not gonna look good. So when you put the glue on your vine, you're gonna stay as far away from the sides as you can. So what I do sometimes is I take a palette knife, or you could use like a butter knife, and I just put a little bit of this E6000 on the end of it and then just spread it over the leaves. Now you want to, because the thinner you have it, the less it's going to ooze out around the sides of your vine. And you really want to stay away from the edges as much as possible. So I try to just put it in the center of the vines. And again, if you're spreading it with a butter knife or a palette knife or whatever, it shouldn't be that big of a deal. But if you are putting the glue directly onto the vines, make sure you're staying in the middle and you don't need to do any of these little thin pieces in between. Just do the thickest parts of your leaves, just a little bit in the center. And then when you attach it to your board, to your round board, make sure that you have it about where you want it before you drop it down, okay? Because again, you don't want to be sliding it and have glue all over your baseboard, because you might be able to see it. So this is still wet, but once you get your glue on the back, you're gonna, hold it about where it is you want it to go, and then just kind of drop it. And you'll have a little bit of leeway where you can slide it, but you're not gonna be able to slide it, a lot. So make sure you have it about where you want it, and then just drop it down on your board once there's glue on. And then you're gonna do the same thing with your letter. Don't go near the edges, so stay in the center of the letter, and you don't even need to cover the whole thing. I usually do a few drops, all the way around here, and then flip it over. And again, make sure you have it where you want to have it, or where you want it to be before you drop it down, because once it's there, you're gonna have to slide it, and you don't want glue all over your board. Also, that glue does take a couple hours to hold really good. So what you don't want to do is put all your pieces on there and then hold it upright, because all your stuff is going to slide down. So once you get it where you want it, let this board lay flat for a couple hours at least before you put it upright, so you don't have any sliding. Now, while you're waiting on that to dry, you can work on the rope. So you're just gonna, what I did is I just slid the rope pieces through the front of the board and then tied them in the back. If you want to use a little hot glue or something right on the knot, you can, but it shouldn't be too much of an issue once they're tied. I just tied it so that it holds on the back. You can trim your rope down if you want, depending on where you're gonna hang it and how tall you want it to be. So, and also you may have these lines on the back. You don't have to use that side. This is if you wanted to do, like some stripes or something, you could. But for this particular craft, I always use the side that doesn't have the etched lines on it. So that's still wet. So I'm not gonna put it together right now. I just wanted to show you how to paint those vines. Hopefully it turned out good. Once everything dries, get it together. Make sure to join the craft crew on Facebook and post your finished pictures, because we love to see them. And otherwise, thank you so much for ordering a kit and for crafting with me. I really appreciate it. Y'all have a great day. Thanks.